Kings, the 4B movement is just the woman's version of involuntary celibacy. The way intimacy works is they say that women control access to physical intimacy and that men control access to relationships. Men who cannot get physical intimacy are then deemed involuntarily celibate. Women who can't get a guy to commit to a relationship and girls who keep getting played are joining the 4B movement because they keep giving up their physical intimacy, and in exchange, they can't seem to get a relationship. So they said, we're done trying to have relationships with guys because we keep striking out. And this group thinks that they're being slick, going, we're just not going to give guys what they want. We're choosing to walk away from men. But everybody in their right mind wants a positive relationship. Everyone in their right mind wants somebody for them. And these are straight women in 4B, which means they would prefer to have a good man. But they have said very loudly that they're giving up on men in general because they can't find a good man, meaning that all of their attempts have failed. So I don't think 4B should make fun of men because they're involuntarily single. Stay up, Kings.
I'm the reason 4B exists. I've actually been saying this the whole time. I am why 4B exists. But not for the reason you think, girl. 4B exists because women tried to date me and they failed. They tried to date thousands of men like me and they failed. What kind of guy is that? I'm rich. I've made tens of millions of dollars on Airbnb. I've made millions more as an Airbnb coach. I am the most known person on YouTube related to the word Airbnb, aside from maybe Brian Chesky himself. And women love men with money and influence. And I've been making $1 million a year since I was 25 or 24 years old. It's been more than a decade. And in that nearly 15 years of dating as a millionaire, I can tell you all of the terrible stories about women abandoning their morals and their principles. I can also tell you of the over 1,000 women who threw themselves at me hoping to get a chance to stick, and they didn't stick. Yeah, and a lot of that is my fault because I could have chose one, but I had to pick between 10 or 15 or 20 at a time, and I didn't choose. Yes, I am the asshole that ruined women's goodwill by letting them try to date me when they really didn't have a chance. And I just soaked it in. I took all that because I have a lot of childhood trauma. That's why. My mom was abusive, alcoholic, violent, made me feel like I shouldn't have been alive. So the moment I started making money, which the only reason why I wanted to get rich is because I felt like a piece of shit on the inside. The moment I started making money and women gave me attention, I soaked that shit in. I thought it was like divine karma. It was justice or something like that. So yeah, now in my late 30s, I can see that me in my mid 20s, I was a fucking problem. But I'm here to tell the truth. That problem still exists to this day. 4B exists because all of you keep trying to date guys you're not qualified to date, and you're competing against each other for that same guy. You even have Facebook groups, are we dating the same guy? And you girls still don't walk away from those dudes. Baby girl, men are not the problem here.
Hey there everyone, welcome back to the Black Coffee Podcast. Today we are diving deep into the topic that's got everyone talking all over social media. We are talking about the 4B movement, a technically radical feminist movement from South Korea that's catching global attention. So the idea is women are choosing to opt out of relationships with men completely. I mean, we are talking about no dating, no marriage, no sex, and no kids. I mean, it's crazy out there. So let's just jump in and see what's going on to what people are saying about this movement.
I'm so glad you asked. The 4B movement is a movement in South Korea right now where the misogyny and sexism is so bad that South Korean women have decided to opt out of dealing with men entirely. That is not a joke. That is not an exaggeration. They are not dating men. They are not marrying men. They are not having children with men. They're not even sleeping with men anymore. And it's called the 4B movement because the Korean words for those four things all start with the letter B. This kind of first started happening around 2016 when Kim Ji-young, born 1982, a novel came out. And it is a fictional book about a Korean every woman and all of the misogyny and sexism that she's experienced from literally being a child all the way to her being an adult suffering with postpartum depression after having her child. Now, this book became a runaway bestseller among South Korean women because they were like, she's just like me for real. And that's kind of when it started cooking, right? Now, the movement officially got its name in 2019 and it's just been going ever since. It's so successful, in fact, that now South Korea has one of the lowest birth rates in the world. The number of deaths in South Korea outnumber the number of births in South Korea. And it's hilarious because all the men and the government are like, oh my God, what do we do? They don't want to like talk to us. They don't want to date us. What do we do? Like everything's in shambles. We don't know what to do. When South Korean women have been very clear from day one, they're like, hey, either you get your act together or we are literally eliminating all of this. Like, we are shutting it down. So that's the 4B movement and why I'm so obsessed with it and why I think we should have the 4B movement everywhere. Thanks for listening.
The 4B movement, let's talk about it. I'm seeing a lot of back and forth about can women in America actually implement the 4B movement. The simple answer is no. Women in America are way too thirsty for men. And men know that. Too thirsty for men's attention, too thirsty for men's validation, too thirsty for the sexual desires that they have from men. With all of that, there's no way that women in America as a whole, as a collective, could implement the 4B movement.
Kings, the 4B movement is just the woman's version of involuntary celibacy. The way intimacy works is they say that women control access to physical intimacy and that men control access to relationships. Men who cannot get physical intimacy are then deemed involuntarily celibate. Women who can't get a guy to commit to a relationship and girls who keep getting played are joining the 4B movement because they keep giving up their physical intimacy, and in exchange, they can't seem to get a relationship. So they said, we're done trying to have relationships with guys because we keep striking out. And this group thinks that they're being slick, going, we're just not gonna give guys what they want. We're choosing to walk away from men. But everybody in their right mind wants a positive relationship.
Of course.
Everyone in their right mind wants somebody for them. And these are straight women in 4B, which means they would prefer to have a good man.
Yeah.
But they have said very loudly that they're giving up on men in general because they can't find a good man, meaning that all of their attempts have failed. So I don't think 4B should make fun of men because they're involuntarily single. Stay up, King.
So let's break it down. The 4B movement stands for 4 no's in Korean: no dating, no marriage, no sex, and no kids, with men in particular. And the reason is, well, women in South Korea have had enough with men. They are tired of the misogyny, the sexism, and honestly, I'll say just the lack of respect from men in society. And this isn't something they came to lightly. I think it's a response to the oppressive patriarchal culture that has been pervasive for years as they perceive it. So you should know that this is how they perceive it. So it becomes so widespread that South Korea now has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, and the government is in panic mode right now, wondering why women aren't interested in starting families anymore. And South Korean women, thinking about them, I'll say these women have been very clear. Either you respect us or we are opting out. But where did this all come from, you may ask? I mean, it didn't just happen overnight. But we remember back in 2016, a novel called Kim Ji-young, born 1982, sparked this wave of conversations. And the book told the story of a typical Korean woman, highlighting the sexism she faced from childhood all the way through adulthood. And women across South Korea read it and were like, yep, that's me. It was relatable and it was real, and it was also a wake-up call for them. And soon after, the 4B movement was born. Now, don't get me wrong here. The idea behind this movement is really understandable, personally. So you can imagine dealing with societal pressure to be the perfect wife and mother while really enduring this misogyny at every turn. I mean, you want to step back too. So the 4B movement is women really taking control of their lives and saying enough is enough. But though it's having an impact into the society, like, come on. At this rate, there'll be no more women to complain about the 4B movement, because there's the birth rate in South Korea is very low. So what about the men? You know, I'll say the men are like, wait, what? It's like a surprise to them. What did we do? No. So the South Korean government is also really scratching their head, trying to figure out how to reverse this trend. But while this is happening in South Korea, there's been some conversations about whether this could ever catch on in other countries, especially in the US. It's where the trends go there to really, really take things to the next level. And some people are saying American women are too thirsty. Some of the ladies here who reacted that they are too thirsty for male attention to make the 4B movement work in the United States. But let's just be real for a second here. In America, the situation is really different. Sure, we've got sexism in America too, but culturally, the dynamics between men and women aren't identical to South Korea, but that doesn't mean some of the ideas behind 4B aren't resonating with women globally. More women everywhere are saying, hey, if I'm not getting the respect and empathy I deserve, I'm out. And honestly, I get it. So with all this 4B movement thingy, what's next? Is everyone talking about the solution? Are we going to see more of these in other countries? It's really hard to say, but what we can take from this is that movements like 4B force us to have these uncomfortable conversations about how men and women interact and what we can do to create healthier dynamics moving forward.
Reason 4B exists. I've actually been saying this the whole time. I am why 4B exists. But not for the reason you think, girl. 4B exists because women tried to date me and they failed. They tried to date thousands of men like me and they failed. What kind of guy is that? I'm rich. I've made tens of millions of dollars on Airbnb. I've made millions more as an Airbnb coach. I am the most known person on YouTube related to the word Airbnb, aside from maybe Brian Chesky himself. And women love men with money and influence. And I've been making $1 million a year since I was 25 or 24 years old. It's been more than a decade. And in that nearly 15 years of dating as a millionaire, I can tell you all of the terrible stories about women abandoning their morals and their principles. I can also tell you of the over 1,000 women who threw themselves at me hoping to get a chance to stick, and they didn't stick. Yeah, and a lot of that is my fault because I could have chose one, but I had to pick between 10 or 15 or 20 at a time, and I didn't choose. Yes, I am the asshole that ruined women's goodwill by letting them try to date me when they really didn't have a chance. And I just soaked it in. I took all that because I have a lot of childhood trauma. That's why. My mom was abusive, alcoholic, violent, made me feel like I shouldn't have been alive. So the moment I started making money, which the only reason why I wanted to get rich is because I felt like a piece of shit on the inside. The moment I started making money and women gave me attention, I soaked that shit in. I thought it was like divine karma. It was justice or something like that. So yeah, now in my late 30s, I can see that me in my mid 20s, I was a fucking problem. But I'm here to tell the truth. That problem still exists to this day. 4B exists because all of you keep trying to date guys you're not qualified to date, and you're competing against each other for that same guy. You even have Facebook groups, are we dating the same guy? And you girls still don't walk away from those dudes. Baby girl, men are not the problem here.
Men are obviously missing the point with this 4B movement, so I decided let me just read off a couple of things that men have done to me in my past, and maybe through this, guys will empathize and understand. There was a man who cut me with a knife on my leg in his car, and then held the knife up to my throat and told me I could drape you right now, and then forced me to give him a BJ. A man asked me over to watch a movie, and then he forced his way on top of me and begged me for smecks. Even after I said no, he asked why, and I said because no means no, and he continued to try to force his way into my pants. A man, or boy at the time, inappropriately touched me in front of my brother, and then whenever I threatened to tell my brother, he apologized to him, not me, and my brother forgave him. When I was a senior in high school, my principal came up to me and stood inches away from my face and told me that my outfit was inappropriate. I was wearing a cheetah print romper on Animal Day during Spirit Week, and it was approved by my mom. Whenever I told a guy that I was trying to date that I had been SA'd, he asked me what was I wearing and did I give them the impression that I was asking for it. And I wish that one was fake. Anyway, so with the 4B movement, women are just wanting safety and respect and empathy. Don't look at us like sexual objects and see that we are human beings that can actually hold trauma. And we have thoughts and ambitions and ideas of our own, and we don't just want to sit inside and clean up behind you and cook you food and have sex with you. And by the way, for anyone wondering, I have healed from all these things, which is why I'm able to talk about them and spread awareness, because this has happened to many women. We are not obligated to lay in bed with you. We are not obligated to give you our attention. And the sooner you learn that, the sooner the 4B movement can end and there can be some healing in our society. But if men continue to act like this, there's not going to be any healing, at least for you guys. Women will heal. We'll heal with each other.
A lot of people have a lot to say about Korean feminism these days and the way they completely want to keep men out of their lives, like the 4B movement, where they just swear off having children with men, or getting married, sleeping with men, or even just dating. Just to let people know, it's called a 4B movement because it's 4 no's. The word P means no in Korean, so P something means no this. And combined with the fertility crisis in Korea, this has become a very sensitive issue, but none of this is very shocking to me, that a lot of Korean women want to swear off men, because I've seen how bad Korean patriarchy can be. And this is very well represented in Korean literature, most famously in Kim Ji-young, born 1982. But what really told me the extent of how severe Korean patriarchy used to be was Please Look After Mom by Shin Kyung-soo. Aside from the main plot, which is about a family's struggle to search for their lost mother, the book describes the married life of the mother and the father, and it's set only, 2 generations away from my generation. And the patriarch in this portrayal doesn't work all that much, if at all. All he really is that he's the head of the family. She works, takes care of the kids, takes care of the home, while her husband does nothing and goes out to sleep with other women, drink with his friends, and do whatever he wants. At the end of the day, he can come back to the nest whenever he wants with no consequences of any kind. And that was apparently quite common in Korea before, where men don't do anything but just for existing, they were valued. The eldest male had power over everyone in the family and let nobody do anything without his consent, including other younger males like a little brother. This is 가부장제, a system where the eldest male takes all decision-making powers within the family unit. This is also 남한선호 사상, where they prefer male children to female children. Like, if women weren't able to produce male children, they were collectively punished by the rest of the family. Going back to Kim Ji-young, born 1982, the main character's little sister is aborted because she was a girl, and that happened very widely in the 80s and the 90s. People just aborted girls because they wanted boys. I mean, in the 60s, when medical technology wasn't, widely available and developed enough, they just throw infant girls away. Very akin to taking out the trash. That happened quite often in those times. And to me, people saying how radical Korean feminism has become don't realize that this is a proportional response to how bad it was for women, how they were just viewed as mere tools in Korean society before, how they were expendable outside of making babies, making sons more specifically. Everyone back in Korea called my mom Jinoo 엄마, meaning Jinoo's mom. And actually back in Korea, all my friends' moms were called like this. Minoo 엄마, Yuri 엄마, Jaesung 엄마, and that was their names basically. Only once in Canada, everyone called my mom by her name, and she finally wasn't just Jinoo's mom anymore. And you may think this is trivial, but it's a part of how Korean society forces women into a role and makes them lose themselves in the process. And in the end, all that Korean women are asking for is to be treated like human beings and not go back to those days when they were nothing except their wombs.
Korean women have no idea what the 4B movement is, and we need to stop this misinformation online. By now, you've probably heard that Korea has one of the lowest birth rates in the world. And a lot of people on TikTok specifically are attributing this to the 4B movement, which, if you don't know, it's a radical feminist movement that basically tells women to completely eliminate men in their lives, which includes not dating them, not marrying them, not sleeping with them, not having children with them. When you search up the term on TikTok, you will not see one single Korean person being like, yes, this is me right now, this is me, I'm 4B. As someone who has lived in Korea for 4 years, the first and only time I've ever heard about this movement is from TikTok, from Western creators. I asked my Korean friends, like, hey, what do you think about the 4B movement? They literally told me, I don't know what that is. Something to also note, in Korea, being a feminist or referring to yourself as a feminist is still kind of like taboo. Tell any Korean man that you're a feminist, he'll look at you crazy. So no, the birth rate in Korea is not low because of the 4B movement, a movement which started around 2016/2019. It's because it's just too expensive. People are still dating, people are still getting married at a lower rate, but again, it's because it's too expensive. Speak to any Korean person and they will say, I want to get married. I maybe want to have kids if I can afford it. No normal everyday Korean person is telling you, yes, I'm practicing the 4B movement.
So we already let the white women convince us to kick out the black fathers and we didn't need black men with the feminist movement. And now this 4B movement, we about to let these women from Korea convince us to not create families in the black community. And I'm seeing women, I just did my research. I saw a few videos and I see women talking about, I've been on a 4B movement. I'm on a 4C, D, E, F. We don't need these men. We got to strategize. We got to get strategic about how these men are about to come after us. Y'all been talking about decentering men. Like, y'all got to wake up. This is not beneficial to us. If y'all think the strategy is getting rid of men, not having families, not having babies, that's going to be a lonely, lonely life. All it is a way to keep you single and by yourself. And that is not a healthy, happy, fulfilling life, to be by yourself. Who wants to be by yourself? Like, seriously. I know we talk about I'm single by choice. Okay, for now, which is cool. But y'all, so we about to, this is what we are strategizing. Not strategizing how we can create families, how we can better our community. We strategizing on how we can lock in as women and, you know, I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna pray.
So, fun fact, I got contacted by a major news organization to give my opinion on the 4B movement based on this video where this comment came from. So, here's what I said. Do not get it twisted, my fellow American men. It's not like Korean ideas came over here and convinced women to stop dating, stop getting married, stop having sex, and stop having children with y'all. I know you think we're stupid and that our ideas do not originate in our own brains. It's always outside influences with you fellas, right? It's always like our friends who told us to get a divorce, or it's some trend that we saw on Instagram or whatever. And so now it's foreign invaders coming in with this 4B movement that's going to convince a bunch of American women. No, you did it. You men. Through your actions, you convinced us all that we are good, that we don't need you, and we're fine on our own. So yeah, make no mistake, it was you. It was your skid marks, it was your farts, it was your lack of consideration and caring, it was your lack of hygiene in general, it was your gaming, it was your corn addictions, it was the fact that you don't listen when we talk. It's the fact that you don't improve when we ask you to. It's the fact that the minute you get us, every single thing that you did to convince us to like you in the first place goes away. You know, we tried really hard to like you. At least I did. Most of the women in my generation did. We married you. We had your kids, we fed you dinner, we kept your house, we worked, split the bills, 50-50, whatever. We went to counseling, we held your hand, we held your head, we held your heart. We made your doctor's appointments, we bought you clothes, we bought you gifts. We tried. So, when you hear about American women and the 4B movement. No, it was not Asian invaders who changed our minds about men. It was men. Love you.
So what do you think, guys? Is the 4B movement something you could see happening outside South Korea? Do you think it's the right way to respond to sexism, or is there a better solution? Just drop your thoughts in the comment section below and let's have an honest conversation about this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.